at the conference about that. So let me start with sort of the issue of free will determinism. And this is, I've put out, this is two roads diverging in the woods. I'm sure most of you have heard, this is a few lines from the Road Not Taken, the poem by Robert Frost. Now, this is the sort of conventional interpretation of those lines. I think if you actually read the poem, the conventional interpretation is wrong of what is going on in the poem. But this is the conventional interpretation. I think it's important that this is the way people read it. So it's two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And the typical interpretation of this is it's a person, an individual standing, there's a fork in the road, he's got an important decision to make, and he can make it. He's the one making that decision. He's making a choice, and he's in that moment and in that choice planning and plotting the person that he's going to be or the person that he's going to become. And in the poem, he's not going to take the road that everyone has traveled. He's going to take the road less traveled. And if you think in the more American context, I mean, the poem is an American poem, this is what individualism and American independence is about. It's going off on a new road, the road less taken. So people hold it as this is a conception of what it means to have choice, what it means to have free will, and some of the importance of it. Now, the typical view today, I think, Dr. Brooke talked a little bit about this in talking about the inequality debate yesterday. The typical view, and particularly if you're talking about sort of the more educated, and when we're talking educated, scientific perspective, is that there is no such thing. So that this scenario from the poem is an illusion. That's the typical view today, I think. I'm going to take two figures. I'm going to concentrate more on one. So that's two well-known figures. Both, they're academics, but they're also public intellectuals. That's Steven Pinker and Sam Harris. And they're well-known. I mean, Steven Pinker is on the Colbert Report. I mean, that's the photo, and Harris is on CNN. I don't believe there is such a thing as free will. That's Pinker. Free will is an illusion. That is Harris. And Harris has a whole book, and I'll talk a little bit about it, or a booklet. It's pretty short, less than 100 pages, I think, on the issue of free will. And this, I think, is the dominant view now, that there is no such thing, it's an illusion. And I want to talk a little bit about the reasons for this. And now, there's no way that I can be exhaustive, but why think it's true? I want to point to one kind of thing that they talk about from a positive direction, so sort of a positive piece of evidence or a positive reason, and then a negative reason. And the negative reason is important, I think, and in thinking of how the debate works as well, and why it is so wide, there is such a widespread denial of the existence of free will today. So the positive reason you could put in a nutshell, it's an appeal to science. So I put up here a picture of the solar system, and it's with the scientific revolution and with our extensive scientific knowledge today. It's what we know is that the world and the universe works in a clock-like way. And this is a metaphor or a description that is often used. Harris uses it, for instance. It works in a clock-like way. And that you can predict if you know the position of the planets now, you can predict with certainty a year from now where the planets are going to be, their relation to one another. You can predict eclipses and so on. And you can predict that with certainty. And there are pictures, this is true of everything in the world and in the universe, and it's true of a human being. So if we go back to the imagery of the Frost poem, the person standing at this crossroads, if you knew what his whole makeup a year before, you could tell you could tell he's going to be at that crossroads, and you could tell in advance what path he's going to take. It's completely determined in a clock-like way. That's the major piece of positive evidence or a positive reason And I think part of the reason for the widespread appeal of determinism. But there's interesting things to note, just even about the appeal to science. So one is they will tell you that you cannot predict human behavior, that we're not anywhere in a position now to say, well, I can tell you a year from now, this is what the person's going to be doing, this is where he's going to be. So what came up last night, that someone could tell, well, in a year before, he could tell, yeah, you're going to show up at this conference at this time, you're going to take that flight, and so that was all predictable. No, we can't actually do that. And even more, they will say that, well, no, it's not actually true that everything is determined by antecedent factors, even when you're looking in the world of science. So this is Pinker, for instance, on the first. I mean, he's very open about this issue. He doesn't believe in free will, but he also doesn't think we're anywhere in a position to be able to predict human action. It's just too complicated and the factors are too complex. So it's an assumption in that sense that at some point in time we will be able to predict it because that it works in a clock-right way. So, and then the other is that, so this is a quote from Harris, that, and if you read the book on free will, it's, well, no, it's not the case, even in science, and he talks about at the quantum level, and so, that everything is determined by antecedent factors. So there's the question then, well, why not think that that is true for humans and maybe for some of the higher level animals as well, that they act in a non-deterministic way, that it's, you can't just look at the antecedent factors and say this is how they're going to function, that they function in a different way. And that's part of what it would mean to say that they have free will, that it's not you find yourself at a crossroads and it's all determined and it's all antecedent factors that determine where you're going to go. It's not determined. Why, if they can allow that for other things in the universe, why not also allow it and think, yeah, that's a real possibility in the case of human beings? And this is where the negative reason comes in, because they don't really even entertain that as a possibility, I think. And this is a picture of the Sistine Chapel, the creation of Adam. There is, unfortunately, I think, a connection made now, and they're seen as sort of, they inherently go together, of free will and religion, or free will and the supernatural. So in the creation of Adam, he's injecting a soul into Adam, God's injecting a soul into Adam, with free will. And this is their concept, that for there to be free will, it has to be some kind of supernatural, religious spark that is put in from a supernatural being into the natural world. And as scientists and so on, we're interested in the natural world. We don't think there's this whole supernatural world that's actually in control and actually sort of shaping the natural world. So if that connection, if there is that inherent connection, this is also what leads them and why they don't even really entertain the possibility that there could be free will, because they think to proceed in a scientific, natural way, you have to exclude it. So here's Pinker, for instance. Human behavior doesn't involve some mysterious soul. And the word mysterious is important there. It's some supernatural, some fragment left of superstition and so on. We don't need that in science. We can't allow that. And so it's that from the